So mandatory mini camp is a wrap. We're about 6 weeks out from training camp for the Falcons. And hey, we know how important it is for the Falcons defense to get off to a good start. They've gotten off to a good start in OTAs. We expect them to have another good start in training camp. But ultimately, this is all about show and prove in the regular season. And we know that Ryan Nielsen is going to be a big part of that. Now, Terry Fontenot did his part. He added all the veteran talent that Ryan Nielsen could have hoped for, especially up front. But how important is it for Nielsen and really just that defensive staff overall, Jerry Gray and those guys, to not only develop those young players on the roster, Jarvis, but really, really hone in on how to get the veterans to continue to evolve and improve their play as well? Because as good as David Onyemata was with the Saints, as good as Jessie Bates III was with the Bengals, you still need them in order for this whole defense to elevate. Those guys are still going to need to elevate their game.
No doubt. I really feel like that's the key piece for Ryan Nielsen and the type of effect that he's going to have on this defense going forward. Because you bring in those veteran guys because you pretty much know what you're going to get from them. But I think it's when you're talking about elevating, that seems to be the key word for the day, elevate. When you talk about elevating, there's a key element that I always talk about with coaches and professionals, right? Professionals want to be taught. They always want to learn something. And once they learn something from you, you immediately have that player's respect going forward to the end of time. And I think that Nielsen is starting to show that he's a teacher. He's a guy that is a student of the game, and he's able to not only learn about the game and apply it to himself and his qualities and what he brings to the table, he's able to also go back and communicate that to the players. And I think that one thing that really stood out to me, T, is the fact that Calais Campbell, a guy who's been in the league for 16 years, said that, hey, I was doing it this way. I felt like I had a really good rep. I felt like I, got it done. And then Ryan Nielsen came up to me and said, here's how you should do it. And here's why you should do it that way. And then he did it that way. He said, you know what? I actually felt better doing it that way. And that's why I feel like he's a perfect fit for this defense. And I think that when you have veteran guys like that, 16 years in, because he's played in plenty of systems, T. 4-3 defensive end, defensive tackle, all that stuff. He's done it all, and pretty much seen pretty much every scheme that you can possibly see in the NFL. When you have a guy like that saying, hey, I learned something from this guy when we were in shorts and T-shirts, I think that's going to be the key in order for the Falcons defense to get out to a good start in September.
Yeah, and I also can recall Calais being really excited about how he'll be used. He said, hey, not that I'm going to be Cam Jordan per se, and I understand that the percentages may not be any more than I think he talked about playing around 60% of the snaps. Right, but yeah. He was excited also about, hey, here's how Ryan Nielsen and company were able to use Cam Jordan. And so I feel like the way that they were able to get things out of him and keep him improving and evolving on his technique year after year, that, yeah, there's actually something that they can bring to the table for me as well. So, yeah, I thought that was a really powerful comment too. And another thing that I liked that came out of mandatory minicamp was the comment that Arthur Smith made about what had become a controversial topic, if we're just real about the thing, since the draft. So since Bijan Robinson was drafted, the question was, hey, what about Tyler Algier? What's going to happen to him and his reps? And I love the fact that Arthur Smith said, hey, these two guys, they're both equally powerful. I think that was good for Tyler Algier's psyche, because Bijan Robinson has already talked about the fact that he sees them as a 1-2 punch equally, right? But he said what he loves is those guys bring different aspects of how they get it done to the table. So I'll throw out a number just as an example, not to say that Arthur Smith meant just that, but the 1,000 yards, no matter what you say, that's still kind of a bell cow, right? That's still kind of a milestone or a mile marker. And he said, hey, when you look at those types of things, yardage, yards per carry, touchdowns, they can both get it done. They can both be equally successful, just in different ways. So I like that, because what that tells me, Jarvis, is just what we say all the time. There's versatility in so many places on the Falcons offense, but Arthur Smith called it out specifically to let us know, hey, I've already figured out that I can use these guys in different ways, in different situations, and still get the same result, which, translation, if you get both of those guys going 1,000 yards or above and getting 8 to 10 touchdowns and hovering around 5 yards a carry like Algier did last year, and you hope Bijan does this year, man, is that going to be a powerful backfield, and you don't have to worry about two guys fighting over the rock.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about that at all. Like when you think about, what those two guys bring to the table, what Tyler Algier was able to accomplish last year, like that accounts for something. That is a big deal. We talked about it on this show ad nauseum. Like this dude broke the rookie rushing record for the Atlanta Falcons as a whole, as an organization. So I'm not too concerned about that, because I feel like I trust Arthur Smith wholeheartedly. But I think that, you bring up a very interesting point when you talk about, versatility and how to use guys. Like we've had some conversations about Arnold Ebiketie, and I saw something yesterday that I felt like was not yesterday, but on Wednesday when I was out there at practice, it was super, super interesting. They had Arnold Ebiketie working at the stand-up linebacker spot. It's not essentially the nickel spot. So, you had your two stand-up linebackers, Caden Ellis and Troy Anderson. You had Bud Dupree, Dave Onyemata, Grady Jarrett, and Calais Campbell on the defensive line. But you had Arnold Ebiketie at the nickel spot. And I was like, okay, what is going on here? You know what I'm saying? So I started going through my little football juices, started getting it flowing. And then I saw the formation where they had a tight end in the game. So I was like, I see. That's what you're going to get. Potentially, you're going to be able to have 5 rushers, if that tight end stays in the block. And then Arnold Ebiketie has been working up that stand-up linebacker spot, so you kind of play around with that. Like, you can have him blitz. You can have him drop into coverage. So I feel like, Nielsen, Arthur Smith, like I can understand why he brought in Ryan Nielsen, because the multitude of things they're going to be able to do with getting guys on the field all at the same time, I feel like this is going to be a true key piece in getting that flow together, getting those substitutions and how that thing flows. Ryan Nielsen has a big task, but I feel like from what I'm seeing already, I'm like, okay, this might be something that might be really special.
Yeah, indeed. And I agree with you on some of that interesting and intriguing work. I can see a 0-0 personnel as well when you have 5 receivers, because your running backs can actually be those for the Falcons. So yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see. And going back to Algier and Robinson as well, you look at what Algier was able to do. People love to say, oh, it's 1,000 yards in 17 games. Yeah, well, guess what? He didn't play 17 games because he didn't dress out in the first one, and he only started 7 of them. So yeah, powerful backfield indeed.